All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive, into immigration law.
Okay.
And, specifically, we're going to look at some recent legal challenges to the Trump administration's deportation efforts.
Hmm.
We're looking at an article that's about a lawsuit filed by immigrant rights groups in Chicago against the Trump administration.
Interesting.
And, whether you're interested in immigration law or social justice
Right.
or just understanding the current political landscape, I think this deep dive will offer a pretty good look
Yeah, for sure.
into, these ongoing legal battles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it seems like, this lawsuit in Chicago is just one of many that are popping up
Okay.
all over the country, really challenging, the Trump administration on immigration.
So what is it exactly that prompted this particular lawsuit in Chicago?
Well, it's really a response to the Trump administration's attempts to increase deportations.
Okay.
And immigrant rights groups in Chicago are basically saying, hold on a second. These policies are way too aggressive
Okay.
and they violate the rights of immigrants.
And who exactly are the key players in this lawsuit? I mean, who's filing it?
So it's a coalition of immigrant rights groups.
Okay.
They've banded together to file this suit.
Right.
And they're the plaintiffs, obviously.
Right.
And then the defendant is the Trump administration.
Okay. Makes sense. And so, can you tell me a little bit more about these groups that are filing the lawsuit? Like, what are their specific concerns?
Sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, they're really arguing that these Trump administration policies are overly aggressive.
Right.
They're saying they violate the rights of immigrants.
Okay.
They claim that certain enforcement actions taken by the administration, actually go beyond what's legally permissible.
That's interesting. So, like, when we talk about potential implications of this lawsuit, I mean, it seems like this could really be a game changer in a lot of ways,
Absolutely.
depending on how the courts rule.
Yeah, the outcome of this case, I think, could have really significant implications.
Okay.
Not just for immigration policy, but for, the lives of countless immigrants across the country.
And what would you say are some of the major, differences or points of disagreement between the immigrant rights groups and the Trump administration?
Well, at the heart of it is really this question of, how far the government can go in enforcing immigration law.
Right.
The immigrant rights groups, they're arguing that, the Trump administration is going too far, that they're violating due process,
Okay.
equal protection, things like that.
Right.
And the Trump administration, on the other hand, they're saying that they're just simply upholding federal law,
Okay.
that they're fulfilling their duty to enforce immigration policies as determined by Congress, and the executive branch.
So it's that kind of classic tension between, federal power
Exactly.
and states' rights.
Exactly. And, it's playing out in the courts, and it's really fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about, this case and the potential implications, I mean, you mentioned that this could really embolden other cities and states
Yeah.
to kind of challenge federal immigration policies.
Yeah, I think that's a real possibility. If the courts rule in favor of the immigrant rights groups,
Right.
you could see a sort of domino effect.
Yeah.
Where other cities and states start to push back against federal immigration enforcement.
And what would you say are some of the potential consequences of that kind of widespread resistance?
Yeah.
I mean, is that something that could ultimately benefit immigrants or could it potentially backfire?
That's a great question. And, it's hard to say for sure.
Right.
I mean, on the one hand, if you have more cities and states resisting federal immigration enforcement, it could create a more welcoming environment for immigrants.
Right.
It could make it harder for the federal government to carry out deportations.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it could also lead to more conflict between the federal government and state and local governments.
Okay.
And it could ultimately make the situation even more chaotic and confusing.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So, and it seems like there's a lot at stake here, both for immigrants and for the country as a whole.
Absolutely. This is a really pivotal moment.
Yeah.
And, the outcome of this case in Chicago and other cases like it
Right.
could have a really profound impact on the future of immigration in this country.
Well, this has been a fascinating look into, the complexities of immigration law
Yeah.
and the challenges that both immigrants and the government are facing.
It's a really important issue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there, keep an eye on this case in Chicago. It's sure to have, a lot of implications, not just in Chicago, but nationwide.
Absolutely. And, think about the broader questions too.
Yeah.
Think about what kind of immigration system we want to have in this country.
Right.
What are our values?
What are our priorities?
Yeah, those are really important questions for all of us to consider.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for joining me today for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
Until next time,
See ya.
take care.